Thank you, Chairman. Director Morton, what input did the White House provide you in drafting the so-called prosecutorial discretion memos?
My principal interaction was with the Department of Homeland Security, so I did not have a regular interaction with the White House.
Did you have an irregular interaction?
No, but as I noted earlier, there was involvement by the White House in this. This is administration policy, and as such, obviously, there was coordination between the departments.
The memos would have been approved by the White House before you.
The White House reviewed the memos.
Who else did you talk to?
The usual folks at the Department of Homeland Security, the Secretary and her senior staff.
Any outside groups?
Me personally, no.
Do you have knowledge of anyone?
I don't. This was administration policy. This was developed by ICE.
Who developed
Department. What's that?
Who developed it?
I did, with the Secretary and the White House.
Well, now I'm confused. So it was you, the White House, and the Secretary that developed this policy and drafted the memo. Who at the White House helped you draft the memo?
No. We drafted the memo, and as I indicated, this is administration policy. There was involvement by the Department of Homeland Security and the White House.
Were any outside groups, any immigrant right groups consulted?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you consult the special agents within ICE before you issued
this
the memo?
particular policy is largely focused on the enforcement and removal operations, but the answer to that question on individual special agents, no. Obviously, the leadership of Homeland Security investigations, yes.
Why didn't you pursue a legislative remedy?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Did you talk to any members of Congress and ask them to change the law to help you order your priorities?
Well, Congress already gives us a fair amount in the way of instruction in our appropriation, as you
That's
may.
kind of my point. They did, and then it was ignored.
No, Congress, in fact, told us very clearly that we were to focus first and foremost on the identification and removal of criminal offenders and gave us a direction on
You
our
think
spending.
that was to the exclusion of everyone else?
But that's not what we're doing. And we
think
remove
that
about half of the people we remove are criminals, and that's about what Congress told us to do. And the other half are non-criminals.
Do you think the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration has the legal authority to decriminalize certain categories of drugs?
I don't believe that the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration has the power to change federal law.
Does he have the authority to just not pursue certain categories of drugs?
Whole classes and categories, no. Does Michelle Linhart have the authority to emphasize certain kinds of drug prosecutions over others? Absolutely. Does she have individual discretion? Absolutely.
Just blanket immunity for certain categories of offenders?
I don't believe the DEA would ever assert that authority, and we certainly don't.
Do you think the Bureau of Prisons has the authority to release certain inmates that are near the end of their time, or even if they're not near the end of their time because they have budget constraints?
I wouldn't say for budget restraints. From my past life as a prosecutor, in fact, they do have authority with regard to people who are very elderly, but that's pursuant to federal law.
Right. You also have a memo about victims, witnesses, and plaintiffs. And if I understand that memo correctly, if you are a plaintiff in certain categories of civil litigation, you can escape prosecution and removal. Is that correct?
Not escape. No, it's simply on whether or not we would put you into proceedings during the pendency of your litigation.
What
if it's not a pass on
What if you're a
deportation.
defendant in a civil case?
This is primarily focused on litigants pursuing legitimate civil rights complaints.
What if an American citizen has a legitimate complaint against someone who is a defendant in a civil case?
And we were seeking to remove that person,
yes.
And their presence was necessary.
Is that covered by your memo?
The memo doesn't specifically address that, although our practice, we will work with people to maintain someone in the country for purposes of witness.
So your memo specifically addresses plaintiffs.
It does.
And you're saying there might be an exception for civil defendants.
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
What I'm getting at is if one illegal immigrant sues another, can you avoid removal? Because then you have both a plaintiff and
Under neither circumstance can you avoid removal. There's nothing in the memorandum that is about removal, avoiding removal. It simply says, don't put someone who's the immediate victim of a crime, a necessary witness to a crime,
or a plaintiff,
someone who is a plaintiff in a legitimate civil rights suit. Think twice. And it doesn't even say don't put them into
civil rights suit. Is it not also landlords?
What's that?
Is it just civil rights suits? It's not landlord-tenant dispute?
No, it could be a landlord-tenant
Right,
dispute.
so it's not just civil rights. It's other forms of civil litigation as well.
That have to deal with vindicating personal rights that are recognized either by federal or state law. That's right.
What about a medical malpractice case? Would that be covered also?
No.
Why not?
Because that's not what we're trying to cover.
What's the difference between landlord-tenant cases and personal injury cases?
This was largely focused on trying to allow people to vindicate important civil rights.
Well, let me say this in conclusion, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Morton, I have great respect for what you do. I have great respect for your former job. The thing that disappoints me the most is whether it's real or perceived, it is the politicization of the criminal justice system. That's what frustrates me. I hope that's not what's happening here.
Time of the gentleman's expired.